Hi there. Today I'm coming to you from my kitchen. I don't often do a live from my kitchen, but I thought this was really important because what I want to talk with you is about home. So I'm having some problems with my connectivity today, and I apologise for that if you are, that was a bit weird. So anyway, so the reason that I am coming live from I'm doing this recording video from my kitchen is because your kitchen is one of the places that has really drastically, I think the design of it has changed massively over the last century, and it has a really significant impact not only on your own life and how you choose to live it, but also it has a much broader ripple effect impact as well. So we can consider that how your kitchen is defining your home, and then there are ways that you can take back control of that and actually have control of your own life by you can define your life and you can make your home reflect your definition of what you want your life to be like. So that's what I'm going to talk with you about today. And so please comment below and let me know if you feel like your home defines your life, or if you feel like you are completely in control of your life and you don't know what I'm talking about, you think it's a ridiculous idea. I know that I have had comments when I've mentioned this before. I've had people commenting saying, no, your home doesn't define your life. How can that be? Or what a load of psychobabble. I've had people telling me it's a load of psychobabble before. So, maybe you are in that camp, and that's fine. I'm still keen to hear what you have to say, because you will give me lots of interesting insight into the opposite to my view. And I'll maybe be able to come up with some more interesting arguments in favour of my position if you are willing to share your position if it's different. And if it's not different, then I would love to also know what you have to think, and maybe we can enrich each other's understanding of this and how we can deal with this. So let's get into it. So Chris, I've actually never thought, I know when we moved books and how they use the house rooms and space for yes, it is, it's really important. So let me talk about the kitchen. So this is my kitchen. It's the one space in my home that is not configured or as big as I need it, and it does to an extent restrict the way that I want to live my life. So this is a really interesting space because the history of the kitchen is fascinating. So traditional kind of dwellings, if you look back in history, I'm going to give you a bit of a history lesson here. If you go back in history, we all, homes were this sort of one room space and a fire in the middle, and everything happened there. Cooking, mending, making clothes, childcare, sleeping, even sometimes animals lived with us in those spaces. So everything happened in this one room, very sociable space, and everybody working together. And then as homes developed, that sort of space was maintained. So even in your Victorian terrace house, you would have had the back room would have had a big range. That fire would have been where all the cooking was done, and it was the dining room, and children would be maybe playing in the backyard and in and out, and laundry would be done in there, and all the activities of family, and everybody would be all together, and then the front room would be like the parlour kept for best. And so then over the beginning of the 21st century, is it? Like around the 1900s and 1920s. So there was a really amazing architect, a woman called, I think this is the right name, I'm not brilliant at remembering names, but I believe her name was Marguerite Schutter. And she spent a lot of time watching women in these traditional kind of kitchen, family room type spaces. She spent a lot of time watching women and how they use the space, sort of plotting their movements around the space and drawing that out on plans and seeing, you know, what was the process that they were going through to create meals and put the food on the table. And she was the person who kind of developed this, you know, the triangle, the kitchen efficiency triangle that many people have heard about and know about, but not everybody knows how to apply perfectly. But she was really the person who came up with that sort of how to make a kitchen efficient. I'm just curious to see what Wendy's written. I don't feel controlled by the house, but it does force me to move throughout the rooms sometimes in a way that's not free-flowing. I'm still battling whether to swap my kitchen and living room round. I need some virtual reality software. Yeah, well, yes, to visualize, it can be easier to visualize. It can be hard to see. We'll get into that in a minute because I want to talk about how you can take back control of your space. So when you're feeling like your space is preventing you from moving around it in the way that you want it to, that is a really good example of that. And so, but what Marguerite Schutter did, she then took all of this observational data that she had come up with, which was, you know, really valuable. She spent hours and hours watching hundreds of, well, I assume it was hundreds. I actually don't know exactly how long she took and how many women. It was basically, as far as I understand it, it was housewives that she was watching, observing, and she was just sitting there in a corner of the room, observing them and seeing as they went around their day-to-day processes, and then marking out, you know, their movement lines across the room and how many, you know, tallying how many times they moved and exactly what they were doing. Mind-bogglingly detailed observational work, sort of thing that you might see in like Big Brother, where there's the cameras following you and you've got these sort of groups of psychologists assessing the movements and how things work. Well, that's what she was doing. And she then developed from that, she designed these super efficient kitchens, which used a very, very small, much smaller amount of floor space and had all of they had a preparation space, a cooking space and a sort of washing up sink space in a very logical position and location in relation to each other. And so the woman who's doing the cleaning would then be able to almost stand in one place and be able to reach everything. So that's kind of my kitchen has been designed based on those principles. And so this is a 1930s semi. And so all of those post-war mass houses, you know, the masses and masses of houses that were built everywhere in the UK post-war were influenced by the research that was carried out by Margaret Schutter. So one house we lived in had rooms you needed to walk through to go to the other rooms, which we really didn't like. No, that's not really ideal. Previous house didn't, and that was nicer. That's interesting, actually. I mean, that's a kind of, there was a development where houses at one time were just lots and lots and lots of rooms, and it was then a kind of an innovation to have a corridor so that you didn't have to go through one room to get to another. So there's lots of really interesting historical, architectural kind of layouts that you can look at. But yeah, I agree. For most people in most places, that's not that comfortable. But it does depend on the room, the use of the room, how you want to, you know, how your spaces relate to. Sorry, I'm talking now, so my mouth's getting a bit dry in it. I've got my cup here. So yeah, Marguerite Schutter created this really efficient home and kitchen layout, which influenced many post-war architects, and especially because it was much, much lower cost for houses and flats to be built with these much more efficient lower, smaller kitchen spaces. But there were some things that they didn't incorporate, that Marguerite Schutter did incorporate in her original kitchen designs following her observational data. They weren't incorporated into the post-war houses that were mass produced. I'm just going to read Wendy's comment. We got loads of sun in the kitchen, the living room is quite dark. Are you better having a living area with sun in it? Does it matter if your kitchen is not sunny? Interesting question. That honestly depends on personal preference, I would say. Does it matter if your kitchen is not sunny? There's different schools of thought on that. I would say I would ask you a question back, which is, which space do you spend more time in, and do you enjoy being in the sunny area more? And if the uses of those spaces changed, if you're spending more time in the sunny area, are you spending more time in the sunny area because it's sunny, or are you spending more time in the sunny area because that's the space that you want to spend more time in? So kind of like digging down a little bit to help you, that might help you decide which is more important to you, which space is more important to you to be sunny. Because the thing about kitchens, this is a little bit of a side issue from what I was planning to talk about, but the thing about kitchens is that they're very task orientated. So you tend to want to be able to see what you're doing. So you do need to have quite good light in your kitchen. But you can supplement light with really good task lighting. And sometimes in a sunny space, if it's too sunny, it can be even more difficult. It can be blinding and glaring and make it more difficult to do the tasks that you want to do. So that's something to consider. Okay, yeah, the sun can often be a hindrance in the kitchen as it's in my eyes, but it would be nice to sit in it. Yeah. So that sounds like to me as though if your kitchen is particularly sunny and your living room is not, and having that sunniness in your kitchen isn't beneficial for you, then but you would enjoy being in the sunshine, that sounds like a good reason to switch them. I'm able to answer these questions for Wendy a little bit better because I know Wendy's house much more intimately than just any random person, because we have worked together. I've delivered a foundation package with Wendy, so I have produced some sketch designs, and Wendy's at that process of deciding how she wants to take her home forward. And so, you know, once you've got some ideas, once you've got some concrete ideas, it's still a process. You still want to make sure that design is right for you, and that is how you take control over your life and make it so that your home isn't defining you, rather you are defining your life and how you want to live it, and then you are controlling the kitchen. And so if we get back to kitchens, hi Paola, lovely to see you. If we get back to kitchens then, so the post-war kitchens that were tiny like mine is, but it has been slightly extended, they're really defining in the way that they were designed for one person, the housewife, to be able to stand in and to be able to work super efficiently. And I thought I'd film here today because I thought I could perhaps illustrate that a little bit to you. So hopefully you can still hear me, but this is my kitchen. Like, it's a typical 1930s kitchen. It has been extended, so what is behind the camera, I can maybe flip it to show you, but it's a little dining area with a window that looks out over the garden. And so this line here, this bit of wall is actually the original external wall. And so the kitchen would have been originally this quite small U-shaped room where I could literally stand here in one place, and I could have preparation space to cut stuff, get food. When I moved in, actually the fridge was originally here. It's now just to the right of, or I don't know if it's the right or the left of you, but it's just there right now. So I have changed the configuration of this space more from what it was. But this is a preparation space. There would have been a cooker here to cook, and then kitchen, the sink, a bit more preparation perhaps. So you could, if you were cooking, you could stand in one place and just turn a little bit and be able to do everything. So super efficient, very, very efficient, but it has a lot of downsides to that efficiency because, well, a number of things. There's no space for anybody else. So it's quite a lonely kind of place to be in. And, you know, your typical housewife of the 1930s to 50s perhaps, maybe, you know, women's lives have changed significantly since those times, since those years. You know, we're nearly 100 years on from that now. But, you know, women do still do a lot of cooking and a lot of childcare, and a lot of these additional, you know, responsibilities often do fall on women, though not exclusively now, which is great. But lonely or cozy? Well, yes, that's true. It does a little bit depend on your personality. If you are more of an introvert and you enjoy cooking, and actually going into the kitchen is a kind of a hobby for you, and you can sort of go in and close yourself off and enjoy that space where you're not having to interact with all these other people, you can give yourself a break from the rest of the household and you enjoy that, that's great. Then this sort of kitchen, highly efficient kitchen that's got, you know, enough space for everything that you need, and you don't have to move very far and you can get everything done really easily, it might be the perfect kitchen for you, and that's fantastic for you if it is that case. But for a lot of women, yeah, exactly, Paula, a lot of women still do a lot of these roles, although it's great. There are loads of men who do all of the cooking even, and so you do get men doing these things. Of course, I'm not hating on men at all in this. I'm just saying that traditionally, certainly it was more of the woman's role, and still it is in a large part the woman who's spending a lot of time in the kitchen and taking most of the responsibility for things like childcare, cleaning, laundry, all those sorts of things. So the problem with this kind of kitchen, when you're also responsible for childcare, is there's no space for the kids to be. And in this layout as it was, there's a window to the side, but there's no window. There was no original window in this wall. Always had the bit that's extended on my kitchen is extended into a lean-to. It's the original lean-to shed, the garden shed. It would have, I don't know what they would have kept in it, lawnmowers and things like that possibly. So there was no window looking out onto the garden. So if you had your children playing out in the garden, you couldn't actually oversee them. There was no way to do any sort of supervision of your children. So, you know, obviously childcare styles and culture has changed as well. So perhaps way back then, 100 years ago, that was okay. Kids were kicked out into the garden and they had to fend for themselves, and they had siblings looking out for them, and you know, it wasn't as much of an issue. But certainly for somebody like myself, a single mum, if I'm here, it's very difficult for me to look after a child who's not in the same room if I'm also having to cook and clean and, you know, deal with dishes and all of that, as well as childcare. You know, it's better because it's extended and I've got a dining area and I've got space. So this kitchen works now as it is. But if it was as it was originally, it would have been very, very difficult to do the childcare as well as do the cooking. And from my terms of my personality, I'm an extrovert. I like to be around other people. So for me, being stuck in a kitchen on my own is like my idea of hell. It would be a nightmare for me. But obviously, you know, I'm an extrovert, and if you're an introvert, you might enjoy that. So that is where, you know, it comes down to your preferences. Let me just see, there's some comments here. So you worked in a commercial kitchen for... Oh, I'm trying to see these comments. Worked in a commercial kitchen for years, so you practice at moving around others and cooking small spaces. But bigger spaces, yeah, bigger spaces definitely better, really, and safer. Project for kitchen and space for the fur kids on perches, so they don't jump on the counters, and a window looking the catio. I love that you call it the catio. Yeah. So Paola is an expert on cats, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do a chat at some point about cats and your home and how to accommodate them better and more safely. But yeah, okay. So that's a great idea, to be able to incorporate specific requirements that meet all of your household, you know, the children and the fur children and whoever else you might live with. So you can see this kind of tiny kitchen, which was really started to be built a lot, and is still being built in a lot of spec houses that are of the more like, and now a lot of spec houses that are more higher end are being built more open plan, because that's what everybody wants. We're going back to what was the original kind of kitchen layout, where it was a more open space, where more people were there, everybody was together, and much more multifunctionality of that space, rather than this kind of very what's the word? I don't know what the word is. Like a unique sort of, a very specific functionality, very defined functionality that's not very flexible, which is this kind of Margaret Shutter style kitchen. Great, Paola, that would be fabulous. And this kitchen is now is sort of starting to disappear, because a lot of people, and me at some point probably in the future, will also do that. And this kitchen has already been adapted, but it's still not quite big enough for me. My partner is a chef as well, so he wants a bigger kitchen too. But this has been adapted, so we've got dining space within this kitchen, but it's really a small area. And so a bigger kitchen with more space for more people to hang out and do more things all together at the same time does allow you to live your life in a very different way to the way that this kitchen does. And that's where I would say that it really defines your life. And I would go further than that to say that this type of kitchen doesn't just define you and your life, but it defines your culture, it can define many more things. So for example, this kitchen, it's quite difficult for me to safely include my 6-year-old in cooking things with me. I'm nervous about giving him sharp knives, and I know that a lot of different sort of educational approaches would give children sharp knives, but I'm a bit nervous about giving him sharp knives, and I don't know how to teach him how to use sharp knives safely, so that's something that I'm worried about. But also then, the cooker is just here, and I'm nervous about him being too close to the flames. It's a gas cooker and all those things. So obviously, you know, induction hobs are safer, I would say, with children around than gas, but that's what I have. And so this kitchen doesn't work very well for me to include my 6-year-old in cooking with me safely. certainly not in a way that I feel comfortable and confident doing. But that worries me, because then if I'm unable to teach him and involve him in the cooking, and he's not learning and experiencing in that sort of more, I'm losing my words today, sort of that kind of osmosis, you know, it's sort of just gradually going in without necessarily sort of sitting down and going, right, we're going to have a cookery lesson and this is how you do this. No, but just like that day to day, you know, being involved and just learning how to do that. Well, then my worry is that he's going to go out into the future, you know, and first of all, he's going to think that the significant woman in his life is going to be the person who's doing all the cooking for him, doing everything for him, because he's not been involved as much and hasn't had any sort of responsibilities. That's on me. But it's difficult because of the space that I have. So to some extent, I'm restricted, I'm limited in what I'm able to do, or certainly able to do in a way that I feel comfortable and safe doing. And also then, not only that, sort of his attitude to potential female partners in his life that he might have. I mean, he might be gay. Maybe he'll have a male partner. I don't know. Whichever is fine by me. But either way, he may then feel like he's not necessarily involved, and he doesn't have to be involved. But equally, if he's then living on his own, and maybe he won't have. I'm sure this is not going to happen, because I will teach him how to cook by hook or crook. I mean, he's going to learn how to cook. But he could, you know, I want him to be able to go out into the world independent, knowing how to boil an egg and make beans on toast as a minimum, but preferably more than that, so that he's not relying on microwave meals and, you know, takeaways. He can have a healthier life. And this is where not having that interaction and not having that easy way to just naturally learn and observe, watch, and learn how to get these life skills, not having that ability because of the way that the space is, and you just don't have the room for the children to be involved. That you know, has greater impact on the whole nation in terms of obesity levels, because we all know takeaways are not that healthy, and you know, these sort of impacts, these are ripple effects, are massive potentially. So it's not just your home can be really significant, and it doesn't necessarily seem significant, you know, oh, you know, your home defined your life, but it really can. It can define and restrict and limit what you're able to do in the space that you have. And that can have lots of long-term ripple effects that go out. So Chris, you still wince at kids using knives, but you started blunt knives and making jam sandwiches. Yeah, that's a good start. I mean, he's been to wood school and learned how to whittle wood with really sharp knives. So obviously there are safe ways to teach kids how to use sharp implements. And I know that it's a good thing for kids to learn. And I've seen videos of really tiny children with machetes and things living in, you know, different places, different cultures, places where they carry a machete around as a matter of course. It's part of their daily life, just to get through, you know, maybe like a more sort of almost jungly kind of rainforesty type place. And actually you need a machete just to be able to move past. You know, you see different cultures and different people having such different attitudes, but I'm very nervous about it personally. But yeah, maybe making jam sandwiches. I mean, he's learning how to use a knife to cut his food. So at the moment, that's where we're at. But yeah, it would be good. I'm not about to give him a machete, but the young kids are taught to harvest rice with a razor sharp tools. Yeah. UK's health and safety, it would. Well, I mean, yeah, so health and safety is interesting, isn't it? I mean, so in terms of this sort of efficient space, again, if you're not having to move around as much, then in terms of your health, that means your movement, you're not racking up the steps. So in terms of your health, it's actually not that healthy to have such an efficient space, because you don't have to move, but actually moving is good for you. You want to be able to move. And so, you know, sometimes, like, there are different kind of ways to look at health and safety. It's not always so cut and dry as that's safe and that's not. So teaching children how to use sharp implements safely from a young age perhaps is better. I don't know. Philosophical question. What do you think? Is it better for kids to use a sharp implement and learn how to use that from a young age and be safe with it? Or is it actually really dangerous, and those kids are much more likely to get injured than kids who are prevented from using sharp knives? I don't know. I'm curious, but it is a little bit of a side issue. But these are all these sorts of things. Like, they come up. Like, there's lots of different side kind of topics that come up when you're thinking about architecture, because it is quite all-encompassing, because it is the space. It's the space that accommodates us doing the things that we want to do. And so this is where you can start to take control of your space. And really the way to do it is for you to decide how you want to live your life, and then recreate the space, repurpose it, rearrange it, extend it, alter it in a way that reflects that. That is how you can take back control and make the space support you in living the way that you want to do, rather than having a space that defines and restricts you from living the way that you want. So that's my general thing. You think they should be shown things at the right age. You're trained to use knives safely for cooking, and that's not taught in schools. Yeah, I don't know if I'm pretty sure I haven't been taught how to use a knife safely, and perhaps that's part of my nervousness in terms of being able to oversee my son in using a knife safely, because I don't really know how to use a knife safely. I'm also particularly weird about blood and needles and cuts. I've got a needle phobia, although that's kind of been sorted thanks to the wonderful Ros Knott, who's helped me with hypnotherapy, and I don't really feel so nervous about needles anymore. But anything that sort of pierces or cuts your skin is something that I'm particularly nervous about. And I have, when I went to university, just before I went to university, there were a few times when I was cooking at home at my parents' house, and I cut myself in the kitchen and fainted. And so my parents were really worried about me doing that, cutting myself and fainting, maybe landing on the knife or something. So when I went to university, they wouldn't let me get any knives, so I wasn't allowed to have knives by my parents. Obviously you need knives if you're going to start cooking, so I got knives eventually, but they did give me really blunt knives. And don't mention any sort of injuries, because that's the sort of thing, like, imagining it can make me faint as well. So I don't want to faint right now in front of camera. But yeah, so blunt knives apparently are more dangerous than sharp knives, because they're more likely to slip rather than cut. And so if they slip, they're more likely to cut you rather than what you're trying to cut. We've gone way off topic. While cutting things with knives is something you do in the kitchen and you want to be safe doing it, and so, bringing it back to the architecture, the amount of space you have to do that and to be able to do that safely with other people, especially children, it is relevant. So that's my really what I wanted to say today, that the space around you can define you, define the way you behave, the way you're able to live. It can define your identity as well. It can define our culture. It has much bigger ripple effects. And the way that we can choose, these sort of bigger ripple effects that can affect, population health, climate change, all these different big picture, national level, worldwide level type stuff, we can start to address them by the way that we live our lives, how we live our lives, and getting control, taking back control, and designing our homes or making our homes work better for us to live in the way that we want to live, and to have those bigger positive impacts on the world, so that we are not you know, in a pandemic of obesity or and massive health risks as a result of that. And we are not worried that, you know, there's going to be some catastrophic climatic change that's going to, you know, have wildfires and flooding everywhere and all these things. We can all get some control back over our lives and also just enjoy our lives and live our lives the way we want to by, first of all, defining how you want to live your life and then recreating the home to enable that to be possible. Oh, I see. So it's more to do with the clean cuts, and sharp knives making cleaner cuts that heal better, and blunt knives make a mess. I don't know. I don't really want to think about that. So I hope this has made sense. I hope it's been interesting. Please feel free to continue to comment, and I will come back and respond to comments. And those were the things that I wanted to say today. So if you're watching this on Facebook, please like it, heart it. I can't do a full heart because I've got my mug in my hand. Give me a heart, a thumbs up or whatever. Angry face if you want to. Sometimes I get angry faces. I don't care. If you're not happy with this and you don't agree with it, great. Comment below and let me know and tell me why. And if you're watching this on YouTube, because I will be uploading this to YouTube, then please subscribe and go and have a look at some of my other videos. And if you are watching this on Facebook and you think, oh, what's on YouTube? YouTube is a much better way, I think, of being able to see past videos. So if you want to go to the YouTube channel, let me know, comment below and let me know, and I will put the link for my YouTube channel in response. Okay, and that's it for now. Lovely to have spoken with you all. Really good to have heard from you. Bye for now.